Greetings, Earthlings! Before we start exploring, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, wherever you're listening. It helps more people find the show and supports our mission of making science accessible to everyone. You're here with DJ Stellar Cloud. Thank you for tuning in. Welcome back to the Exploring Your Universe radio show. Exploring Your Universe is UCLA's largest science fair, and every year we have over 10,000 visitors. I'm currently researching whether we are the largest science fair in Southern California, so stay tuned to the next episode to find out. You are listening to DJ Stellar Cloud and...
DJ Squared.
DJ Squared, aka DJ, their name is literally DJ, is a PhD student here in the Department of Earth, Planetary, and Space Sciences where they study planets. So welcome DJ Squared. So DJ Squared has been a part of EYU for longer than I have, since like 2016?
Yeah, just about, yeah.
Okay, so how did you start off in 2016? Were you a visitor, booth leader?
So I transferred into UCLA.
Wonderful. We love our transfer students.
When I first transferred in, I was just part of different clubs, and I was also part of the EPSI department in my undergrad.
Oh, really? So planetary science was not a major back then. Were you a geology major?
I was technically geophysics, actually.
Oh, okay,
So
cool.
yeah, I was a geophysics undergrad. Each year throughout my undergrad, I was either like just kind of placed somewhere in EYU. Like sometimes I was part of a club, sometimes I was like doing stuff for the department.
Oh, okay, yeah, because the department used to have sort of like a more official role in the event.
Yeah, they had like a room, and it was just like random demos in there.
Yeah, it started to change. I'm not sure when. I'm guessing it was 2022, but I'm not positive. Okay, so you were either a volunteer like for EPSS or with a club. Which clubs in particular, if you remember?
Let's see, I was part of Bruin Space. I'm not sure. Actually, they should still be active. They're like they're kind of similar to Elfin and any of those like space type engineering projects.
Check out Bruin Space. Shout out to them for having DJ on their in their booth. Okay, so what happened after you graduated undergrad then?
I graduated right before COVID hit. I graduated 2019.
Yeah, sorry to hear that.
It was fall 20. I mean, it worked out in terms of undergrad because I didn't deal with the COVID year, but I dealt with it in my grad year because that's when I started my PhD.
Oh, okay. So you actually have been in this department, basically in this major for like a long time.
Kind of. I was a geophysics major. I switched out of it.
Oh, okay, okay.
So that was like a little transitionary period where I was kind of part of the department, then I left the department, and then rejoin the department.
Got it. We'll definitely get back into that later, but during your 2020 year COVID era, were you part of EYU?
No, so I wasn't. That was like the small hiatus was when it went online. Yeah, I think for me it was just like kind of tough to see like how I could like fit in or help along. If you're curious what happened with EYU when it went online, you can check out the episode featuring Abijah Simon, where she explains how she saved EYU 2 or 3 or 5 years in a row by moving it online and then back in person. But anyway, so when did you get back involved with EYU? I think it was about that 2022 number, what that you're quoting earlier.
Yeah.
I guess when we were talking before this.
Yeah. No worries. You can break the fourth wall. It's fine.
Yeah, it was about then, and because I was a grad student, I thought to transition from being like a volunteer of EYU to practicing being part of the board and kind of seeing how the sausage is kind of made.
Yeah, so just since like board applications are kind of live right now, could you briefly explain like why this transition was helpful to your personal growth maybe?
So for my own thing, when I first became a grad student, I had this idea of pulling away from clubs just because I was like, I need to focus on my PhD stuff.
Yeah.
And then that was starting to become unfulfilling because I do really like community science outreach and interacting. And EYU was always just something that I like enjoyed.
Absolutely. I mean, it sucks that it only happens once a year.
Yeah.
Not that I could handle this more than once a year to anybody listening. Okay, so you wanted something that was like still going to be community science. You still have your research on the side, but like you had free time or like...
I mean, I don't think free time is like doing.
Yeah, so having free time is not a prerequisite for joining the board. Just join. Okay, so when you joined in 2022, I actually know what role you had because we shared a role in the publicity sphere. Abijah placed you in publicity. Was that because you were interested in marketing?
Yeah. I mean, it felt like the easiest role for me to be a part of. For myself, while I like interacting with the public, I try to avoid having to depend too much on other people.
Oh yeah, it's definitely more of an independent role. I mean, I didn't really like need to talk to the other board members when I was just like making flyers, but you were doing sort of more of like the online outreach part of everything.
Yeah, which is still kind of like pushing me to interact with other things, but there is a lot less of I didn't feel like other people were depending on me as much.
Oh, 100%.
There wasn't like anything being blocked by like me not doing something or if I was slow about something.
Yeah, I mean, that definitely comes into play sometimes. I think that like EYU is sort of this beautiful thing in which you're part of this really like tight-knit group of people who are all working together, but sometimes the pressure can build up.
Yes. So for me, I liked that I was still part of it, and I think this fit within just how I interact with stuff and how I work along. But then I was still contributing and helping, and then ultimately the board is great. Like we got a lot of work done, and each year was still very seamless and worked out.
Yeah, so thank you to all the previous board members who have worked in 2022, 2023, or 2024. DJ Squared here thinks you all did a great job. Okay, so transitioning then from 2022 to 2023, did you stay in the same role?
Yeah, I stayed in publicity like each year that I was a part of it.
What were sort of like your highlights of being EYU's publicity chair?
When I did it my first time and I was coming back, I thought, okay, there are areas that I want to improve on, and I can like try to learn something new, or I can try to like improve this role, or like try to better some areas of this role. I don't know. It didn't seem beneficial for me to try and learn something new, whether I can like try to like optimize this role, because I've learned it a little bit.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, we're all slightly different people, vaguely the same but slightly different, and so for you it was more like, I want to be in like a role that's slightly more siloed than other roles, and I'm gonna keep optimizing how this role interacts with the board and how I am in this role. What were some things that you learned from being publicity chair 3 years in a row now?
Me being a community college student, one of the things that I like compiled together was a community college spreadsheet to reach out to those students, or those communities. Because we weren't really doing that before. We didn't really outreach to that subset of people. So that was like something where I thought that would be a cool thing that we can benefit from. And then we've done a little bit of the IG and a little bit of the TikTok stuff. That was a learning process for me as well.
Yeah, follow us on Instagram and TikTok if you haven't. And you're the spearheader of the TikTok. We never had a TikTok before that.
Yeah, that was new for me. I mean, I've done very little with TikTok before that.
Are you a TikTok user?
A little bit.
Okay.
Yeah.
I am notoriously like not a TikTok user. Like my friends send me TikToks and I'm only like an Instagram Reels girly, and it's sort of like this generational divide of like I'm the millennial of my Gen Z friends. But anyway, so thanks to DJ Squared, we now have a TikTok. What do you do during the event? Because most of your role is sort of front loaded.
That like changed each year.
Yeah.
Because one year we had like a videographer, and I was following them around.
Oh my gosh, the videographer, yes.
Yeah. Ultimately, I didn't think that was like a great use of my time.
Yeah. I didn't think so either.
Yeah, we adjusted that the following year, rather than me just having to follow the videographer around. The following year, I was just kind of placed, right? Like I was just kind of there to like help flyers or assist where assistance was needed.
Yeah. Every once in a while, something weird happens at EYU. A booth leader forgets to order shirts, and they're like, someone needs to come talk to us about shirts or something of the equivalent. So your second year, you're kind of a floater.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of how publicity works, because like we do most of our stuff, and then we just kind of like fit somewhere. Usually I was like placed at like the info table because it's so busy all the time.
Love the info table. That's actually my favorite place to be, and I try to be there like as long as possible, but again, these things come up. This most recent year, you were a booth leader. Yeah,
so that was something that I did with Valeria, another person in our department.
Yeah, shout out to Val.
So that booth is called Strata in a Jar, or Stratigraphy in a Jar.
Yeah.
A very active booth, and lots of kids.
It's so popular.
It's huge.
The line wraps around the block, but obeys the fire code. And so, what happens at this booth?
So we have all these different types of sands, and the idea is that the kids will put different colors of sands and just kind of learn about how sediment falls down, right? Gravity pulls it down, so you have like layers of sediment, and that's kind of how like geology works.
Oh, so even if you mix the different sand grains, it would still stratify?
Well, if you shake it up and mix it, I mean, that leads to other kinds of like events, or it makes it a little unrealistic. But the idea is you have the bottle just sitting, and when you put the sand, you'll see it like layer on top of each other.
Oh, like the sand art.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Or like those candy tubes from the early 2000s.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. This booth is really popular because it has a souvenir, and the souvenir is very colorful.
Yes. So the kids get the souvenir of the jar. Val and I were able to make it even bigger because we got some NASA scope funding, so we got even more jars and more sand. And all that was just was a great time. And that booth's been around forever. I think
it will somehow continue this year. I mean, I am now the president of the EFMP, so I can't run the EFMP booth and be the president of EYU. But hey, EFMP has many other board members, and I'm sure one of them would love to take the booth over. I want to hear a little bit more about NASA SCOPE. What does SCOPE stand for, and how did you and Val get into that?
What does SCOPE stand for? That is a good question. What's it? Science?
Okay. This is why the laptop's here. Okay, NASA SCOPE, SMD Community of Practice for Education.
Okay, I mean, I didn't even realize that was the actual.
Yeah, so SMD is Science Mission Directorate.
I think that's the best. I guess it makes sense why it's called SCOPE. Yeah, NASA and their acronyms.
Astronomy loves acronyms. Okay, so how did you and Val get involved with this?
So SCOPE is something that I've been aware about for a couple years. They advertise at AGU.
AGU is the American Geophysical Union?
Yes.
Which is the Super Bowl of geophysics.
Yeah, it's like the big conference that all the geophysicists, planetary, anyone like geology related in any way is there.
Yeah.
So SCOPE is always there, and I knew about them beforehand, that they give this funding if you're like an educator or you're into like science education, or you just have some kind of idea that like leads to community outreach. You can apply to them and you can maybe get some seed money. I knew about them pretty early on, but I never really knew what I wanted to apply to them about.
Yeah.
I reached out to Val and I was like, hey, would you be interested in applying to this? Like we can be like write a joint proposal.
Yeah.
Submit it, and we can try and do. It was in this case, it was like connecting a lot of leaders and science leaders to community colleges. So we did like these kind of like talks at community colleges.
Because Val is also a transfer student.
She is, yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
I love this. The transfer student representation to allyship to mentorship and funding. That's awesome. Okay, so you and Val won the SCOPE money, and part of it was to host the booth at EYU, but other parts were talking at community colleges?
Yes.
How did that go?
It went really well. So one was at Val's community college. And then one was at my community college. Yes, Cerritos College.
And then where were you at?
I'm at College of the Canyons.
Oh, okay. A lot of people who are like UCLA students end up teaching there because it's kind of close by.
Yes. I might end up teaching there.
Awesome. We'll look out for that. Professor DJ Square.
Yeah, so we like allocated some money for each little event, and then part of the money we set aside for our booth.
Yeah.
Which was like getting some of the supplies and all that. And then then we bought the bottles and did all had our event. It was great.
Awesome. I'd have to estimate that y'all had over 3,000 children probably stop by, just based on like line estimates. And there's an estimate that Emmanuel gives in the Emmanuel episode of the EYU radio show where he explains how to count how many people went to your booth.
Oh my gosh, I did not realize that.
Yeah, I think y'all had a lot of people. The line was crazy. I really wanted to go visit Val because Abijah and I were there looking for Val, and we just like could not get through the mess of kids. So I was wondering if you happen to remember any fun stories of kids learning about stratigraphy, or even just having a really good time, saying something funny to you.
I mean, the kids are always just like kind of having fun with the sands.
Yeah.
There's always like, I think it's kind of more of like an unfortunate story, but sometimes it's like they want a very specific color, and if it runs out, they get a little hard, and we feel bad because we want to give them the like the different colors, but it is very cute like how interested they are into all the stuff. we were able to create like a poster board this time that showed all the different like laws of stratigraphy and all that stuff. What are they called? Steno's laws.
Okay.
I don't know them off the top of my head. But,
I don't
either. But they are on a poster now to kind of even show more of what the kids are learning about. And if I recall, there are actually some kids that, like, because they saw the poster, they're like asking about it, and that was a nice thing.
That's awesome. Just sort of wrapping up here with your EYU experiences, what was your favorite color of sand that appeared at the booth? And was it the most popular color with the kids?
Let's see. I do like the blue, and we kind of had like a reddish sand.
Mm-hmm.
Probably because that's like a nice contrast. But blue kind of makes me think of the moon, and red is like Mars.
Oh, cool. Well, that's going to lead us like right into our next section, unless you had any other final thoughts about EYU.
I mean, just besides that, EYU is great, and I love it, and I still interact with it now.
Yeah, and you've loved it now for 10 years. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So we're going to sort of transition into our all about you section here. So you've mentioned the moon and Mars, and I know that you're a planetary scientist because I went to your practice exam. What do you study here, and how did you get into that?
Yeah, so what I'm trying to prove is that the Earth is flat. And
aren't we all, honey?
Earth is not flat, by the way. No, I look at a lot of interiors of giant planets.
Okay.
So while I talked about Mars and the moon, what I actually primarily look at is Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, and I look at those interiors of those planets.
Okay, so we call those guys the gas giants. Do you know how many times larger they are than the Earth?
I think in terms of radius, Saturn is 9 times larger.
Oh, okay.
I'm not sure if that's like off the top of my head.
Yeah,
right
I mean, so they truly are giant. So these planets that are in the outer section of our solar system, our thoughts are that the surface of them is made out of gas. So if you stepped on Jupiter, you'd fall some distance through. And they are significantly larger than Earth and way, way colder. So what got you interested in these planetary interiors?
So I have like a telescope, and before I even got a telescope, I used to interact with a lot of astronomy, like local astronomy groups.
Okay.
One of the first objects I observed was Saturn, actually.
Okay, so what is a local astronomy group, and how does one get into that?
Getting into it is probably like buying a telescope and like going to their club meetings. There's usually one for like every like town or city. Like there's one that's for LA City. There's one in Santa Clarita. Yeah, they're usually called like local group or local like Los Angeles local astronomy group. Like
I had no idea that we had that. Are you in the one for LA right now?
So I interact with the one in my hometown, which is Santa Clarita.
Nice.
And yeah, one of the first things I observed was Saturn, and I would say like if like looking at pictures of like Hubble or James Webb, they're like those are always amazing pictures, but when you're looking through a telescope and like you're seeing that object for like that first time ever, it really is a different experience. Like it's absolutely it's like nothing else. Yeah, that's
really cool. So how old were you when you joined the Santa Clarita local astronomy group?
That was during community college.
Oh, okay.
That was I was in community college. I was part of the like physics astronomy group that we had there, like our club there, and we would interact with the local group. When they hold events, we'd like come along and all that, and yeah.
Okay, this makes a lot of sense because I'm like, you know, as a kid, even though I was interested in astronomy, I never really found these local groups, but I started to interact with them more through student orgs.
Yeah.
Like Society of Physics Students that I was a part of way back in the day. Sort of also had ties to like vaguely similar groups around San Diego, but I never really got into local astronomy groups, so that's really cool. What was your first telescope?
So it's a Celestron. It's
nice.
A 117 millimeter.
Okay.
And it was actually a gift that my friend gave me because she knew I've been meaning to get a telescope, and she got it for me as like I know you want this, so I'm gonna get it, because I was always like putting off like, oh, I'll get it next year or something.
Because it kind of sounds like a luxury item, but like hearing like your story, it was actually like imperative that you got this telescope. Okay, so you went to the group, you looked at Saturn through the lens. It's just like two lenses and your eye, and you see Saturn. And like, what are you thinking? Like, what is this aha moment?
I mean, just seeing it, it's like, I don't know, the like half the size of a dime that you're looking at it. But
that's pretty good.
And well, I mean, maybe I'm off, but point is that it's small, right?
Yeah,
That you're seeing it, but you know it's so much larger than Earth, and it's just such an amazing feeling. And I feel that whenever I look at the sun or I look at anything else now, that I know it's just way larger than Earth.
That's a really good point, because I feel like when you think about the sun, it's kind of like a really small part of your field of view, but it would absolutely destroy Earth if we got any closer. Okay, so you're kind of amazed by like the size scale of looking at Saturn through the telescope versus how large Saturn is as a person. And then were you already in astronomy at community college?
No. So
okay.
Yeah, there's a lot of changes in my story. Back then
We'd love to hear them.
Back then, I was more pre-med.
Okay.
I finished up my EMT stuff. I was working as an EMT.
Wait, you've been an EMT this whole time?
I was. I don't keep it. I don't maintain my license anymore.
Okay.
I maintain it like during undergrad, but I was pre-med and I was doing more biophysics stuff. Like I was considering to go that route to go apply to med school.
Okay.
But as I got higher in physics, I thought like, I want to take more physics classes. And I started getting pulled more towards planetary science.
Okay. I mean, I love physics. I was never pre-med, but you and Brandon actually have a similar story of both having been pre-med and then switching into physics. Okay. Out of curiosity, what got you interested in being a pre-med?
Some of my family is from medicine. My aunt's a doctor, my mom's a nurse.
Shout out to these women in medicine. That's amazing. Okay, so you start to switch into planetary science because you're taking physics classes and you like it. Is this before or after your Saturn experience?
That was like pretty much at the same time.
Okay, so everything hit you all at once.
And then it was kind of just more when I transferred what I was gonna decide to do. I applied to different schools for different physics programs.
Okay.
And because I was like, part of me didn't know what I wanted.
Yeah, I mean, I think most of us don't know exactly what we want to study for the rest of our lives, and we're like 20. That's kind of crazy.
Yeah, it's intense. Like, I think if I had gone to UCSD, it would have been more of like I'm not sure if it was biophysics. I think it would have been like chemical physics.
Okay.
Which would have been very different from geophysics.
Yeah, very different.
And then like Davis would have been like astrophysics.
Okay.
So I was like kind of had this splatter of like, all right, I need to make a choice.
Yeah, that's a very interesting method of applying to different schools. How did you find out that UCLA had geophysics? Because I didn't actually know that.
Or I was part of a program called MESA, which was this kind of like retention for minorities and to help us transfer out. And part of it is they showed us this website called assist.org.
Okay.
And when you go through it, you can see what your class is transferred to when you like are trying to transfer.
Oh wow! So any current community college students should look at this website.
Yeah. It's I think usually they know about it if as long as you talk to a counselor. But it is like a really great resource. And when I was trying to go through all these different physics programs, I just saw like, UCLA has something called geophysics, and I started to look into it.
Yeah.
And it was kind of the only UC that had a geophysics like degree.
Yeah. It's not very common.
No. And so I thought like, okay, UCL apply to geophysics because that's the only option like there. Like I can apply anywhere else for like physics, but like this one has geophysics.
Oh, that's really funny. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Like, when you explain it that way, it makes a lot of sense. But most people I know sort of apply to the same major everywhere. Okay, so you end up choosing to do UCLA geophysics. What was your experience like here in the PSS department? I'm assuming it was great.
It was kind of great, but there's a reason why I switched out.
Okay.
And it was just kind of my own nerves. Part of the geophysics degree has you do a lot of geology stuff that I found that I wasn't ready for.
Okay.
Or I just thought I wasn't good enough at. I wasn't good at mapping. I wasn't and like when I had done the mapping course, the idea of having to take like 3 or 4 more mapping classes, I was just like, I'm gonna like not be good at this degree.
I have seen the maps. They get brought to the EFMPT time all the time. Yeah. These big wax papers. Okay, so mapping made you less interested in geophysics. How did you switch into planetary science eventually?
So in undergrad, I actually switched out of the EPSS department.
Oh,
and I switched to computational math.
Okay, you switched to computational math?
Yeah, so I enjoyed mathematics.
That's crazy. Okay.
Yeah, so I switched over to being a math major.
Okay.
And it was also just like an imposter syndrome thing that like,
Yeah.
okay, computational math has some computer science in it. If I can't make it as an academic, I can at least work in industry because I'll have CS.
Yeah. Sell out and be a software engineer.
Yeah, right. I was like, there's always a backup plan.
Yeah.
But while I was finishing it, I decided that I still didn't want my geology credits or geophysics credits to go to waste, so I got the geophysics minor.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yes. And in that, one of the last class I took was actually with who is my current advisor, Lars Stixard.
Yeah, shout out to Lars.
He taught planetary science, and when I was an undergrad, I took that class with him, and I found it reignited my my passion for what I wanted to do, because I was very much just at the end was like, okay, maybe I'm not like cut out for school, but that like got me back into it. I did some undergrad research with Lars, and then that undergrad research project later became what is now my dissertation as a PhD student.
That is so cool. Could you briefly tell us what your PhD dissertation is?
Like I mentioned, I study giant planets, and I look at the interiors of giant planets.
Yeah.
Part of it is looking at it in terms of this microscopic scale, where I'm looking at crystals and the atom interactions, to infer or to connect that to thermodynamic laws or material properties of the crystals.
Cool.
Learning all these different laws, or learning about all these different properties, I should say, allows us to describe the interiors of these giant planets, and that allows me to model them more properly, at least. So it's this idea of simulating on my computer materials and then modeling it hopefully properly.
Yeah, so you got to tie in your computational math skills back into your eventual PhD dissertation. Like your whole life eventually like stacked itself together into what's like becoming your PhD dissertation.
Yes, all my computer science.
You had the Saturn, and then the geophysics, and then the computational math. It's so beautiful. And I just want to say that obviously you can do it because you've been working on your PhD for like 4 years now. 5. And you've made so much progress. And so the imposter syndrome was like always like fake. How did you end up beating imposter syndrome? Have you beat imposter syndrome?
I don't think we ever really do.
I don't think so either. But I try not to feed that answer to people.
It's I think it's more you have to be comfortable with the fact that there's amazing people out there. There's always going to be someone that is just doing amazing things.
Yes.
But you shouldn't let that mean that what you're doing is also not amazing.
Yeah, 100%. I totally agree with that. I just came from yoga class, and they're always like, don't look at your neighbor. Your neighbor's on their own journey, and you're on your journey. Did you ever feel like being a community college transfer held you back from certain opportunities at UCLA?
I mean, I do think there's a little bit of it was tougher for me to transition. So I took 3 years during my undergrad rather than like what would be the standard 2 years, right?
What's one more year?
Yeah, and I think part of that is just I struggle to like find resources to like support me. And maybe if I had like known about resources back when I was a geophysics major, I wouldn't have switched out, right?
But you know about them now? Would you like to name drop any of them for our listeners?
Well, EFMP is a new thing, but like back then there were like different clubs, which I think is like was it Geologic Survey or something? The Bruin Geologic Survey. They have different acronyms.
Okay. I do know who you're talking about because they planned a trip the same weekend as EFMP. EFMP stands for the EPSS Family Mentorship Program. I currently lead this program where we pair undergrads and grad students all together so that we can all mentor each other as a conglomerate. That's funny, conglomerate. Okay. So yeah, you think that benefiting from peer mentorship is sort of like what would hold somebody in a geophysics major?
I think it'd definitely be beneficial, and it grounds you again. If I was like struggling back then and was talking to someone, we're just gonna make all these different Earth references. Rock fun, yeah. And I think if I was able to talk to someone more about what I was kind of going through, that like, I don't think I'm gonna cut it as a geophysicist, they probably would have like been able to tell me like, you know, stop freaking out.
Thank you so much for sharing your story and your struggles with imposter syndrome on here, because you never know who's listening, and there could be somebody listening right now who's going through the same thing you went through when you were an undergrad, and they can feel encouraged by your story. Cool. So my final question for you is, if you were a child at EYU and let's say child DJ runs into adult DJ squared at the EFMP booth, what would you have wanted to hear?
What if I wanted to hear? Let's see. I mean, I go back to how much the telescopes inspired me. So perhaps being told where Astro Society is, because they do the telescope stuff, or the planetarium, but everyone knows where the planetarium is.
Okay, so no one knows where the planetarium is. Please tell our listeners about the planetarium.
I mean, I thought planetarium's so busy though.
So the planetarium's busy during the actual event, but like nobody goes to the free planetarium nights on Wednesdays.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Yeah. So the planetarium is like throughout the year they're always doing shows. And it's free shows on Wednesday, and usually there's even night telescopes set up alongside the planetarium.
Yes,
it is in what is technically math sciences, which is connected to Bolter. Maybe I knew about it because I was also a math major, and I just
were your classes in Bolter?
My classes were in MS or Bolter. They kind of just like threw out there.
The maze. Yeah. I get trapped there all the time.
It's the 8th floor of MS. And it's also like student run. It's usually a student volunteer that's leading the show, and
you're one of the speakers.
I'm one of the planetarium volunteers. I haven't done a show in a long time.
Okay.
But yeah, it's like a really great thing, and they sometimes hold like a spontaneous show if there's a special event. Like I think they were doing stuff for the blood moon, and they're doing stuff for like whenever there's like the planetary alignment or any of those things. They'll hold like extra things.
Cool. So check out the UCLA Planetarium free on Wednesdays. You might run into DJ Squared there. So you, like me, have goals of being a science communicator sometime later on. Where can people find you? Where can they keep up with your journey?
So I have a kind of a hiatus YouTube channel at the moment. It's called, it's DJ's Office Hours. It's mostly computer science right now, but I have intentions of doing more planetary science and just like math type topics on there. And I would say that's probably like my primary like science education outreach that I do.
Awesome. So check out DJ's Office Hours. And with that, never stop exploring.